Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, with Halloween approaching, the National Confectioners Association is revealing the most popular candies, how Americans are preparing for the holiday, and tips for celebrating. The spokesperson for the National Confectioners Association gives us all the details later on. Then, SuitUp is an organization where young adults become career-ready and develop diverse talent pipelines through innovative virtual and in-person business competitions. The managing director of partnerships for SuitUp tells us more about how the organization works. After that, we look back at an interview with the COO of SBH Health System, where we discuss their efforts to support healthcare in the Bronx. And finally, Lift is a documentary that shines a spotlight on the transformative power of dance and the invisible story of homelessness in America. We are joined later by the director of Lift to share more on how dance can help inspire and change lives. So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, October 10th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. With Halloween just around the corner, 93% of Americans are planning to share Halloween treats with their loved ones. Whether you're a fan of candy corn or not, there's no denying that it's an iconic part of the festive tradition. Carly Schildhaus, the spokesperson for the National Confectioners Association, joins me to talk about these holiday traditions and if there's a right way to eat candy corn. Carly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me and happy Halloween season.
Of course. Now, I want to learn a little bit more about your organization, the National Confectioners Association. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We are the trade association for the confectionery industry. So we represent the people who make chocolate, candy, gum, and mints all throughout the country. And we're advancing the confectionery industry and advocating for all of those people.
Nice. So I want to talk about candy corn. Despite it being a staple in Halloween, why is candy corn such a highly debated candy? I feel like you're either on one end or the other. So, what are some of your thoughts on why, this candy is so, just like highly debated in the Halloween sphere?
It's such a good question. As somebody who loves candy corn, I have to admit, I don't understand how people don't enjoy it, but I completely respect that people have different opinions. It's all about personal preference. And what's really special about the confectionery industry is that there's something for everyone. So whatever flavors you're looking for, whatever kind of taste is your preference, whatever dietary considerations you may have, there's a treat out there for you.
Now, I'm also thinking maybe a reason why people don't like it is it could be because they're eating it the wrong way and that there's a proper way to eat candy corn. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It is the hottest debate that's happening throughout the country right now, is the right way to eat candy corn. I don't know if there's exactly a right way. I can tell you what we know, though. About 31% of Americans are like me, and they start with that narrow white end. 18% of Americans start with that wider yellow end. And then 51% of Americans just go for it and they eat the whole piece at once. So if you enjoy candy corn, there's probably a right way to eat it for you. I'm wondering for you if you enjoy candy corn and how you eat it.
I'm not really sure. I feel like I used to like it when I was younger, before I was like influenced by society. And then I think, my opinion changed on it. But I do think it's a nice addition. And I love seeing candy corn around because it does remind me of fall and Halloween. So I will say there's a part of me that does kind of like it. Now, in addition to candy corn, what are the most liked candies associated with Halloween in general?
It's a great question. We did this hard research so that you don't have to figure out exactly the right treats to share with trick-or-treaters in your neighborhood. Coming in at number 1 is probably no surprise. It's chocolate. People love it year round, and it's perfect for the Halloween season. Coming in at number 2 is gummy candy. So different bold flavors, maybe some interesting shapes. Perfect for the 60+% of Americans who say that they're looking for treats with a creepy or scary or spooky theme. And then the third one is, of course, that iconic and controversial treat, candy corn.
Now, I want to talk about this a little bit, just because, like, for most people, when they think candy, they think it's all the same thing. But I noticed there's a difference between, like, chocolate versus, like, I guess, gummy candy. You know, as somebody who works in the field of candy, you know, like, how do you guys determine or, like, I guess, differentiate these different categories of candy, or are they all considered candy?
It's a great question. When we're talking about the category overall, we're looking at confectionery. And then to your point, there are so many treats that fall underneath that. So whether that's chocolate or sugar confectionery, gum and mints, all fall within that category. And again, the really exciting part about it is there's something for everyone. So whatever you're interested in, we'll have for you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, how are people feeling about Halloween overall this year?
People are so excited about the Halloween season. People are really excited to celebrate it. About 93% of Americans will celebrate with chocolate and candy because it's such an iconic part of the Halloween season. And people are looking for reasons to extend the season. They really see that Halloween is so much more than just the night of October 31st. It's the full season. And there are so many different ways to celebrate and incorporate chocolate and candy into celebrations. So whether you are decorating with treats or enjoying some treats while you're making your costume or baking with chocolate and candy, people are just so excited about the Halloween season and the important role that chocolate and candy play within it.
And I also want to expand on that. How can trick-or-treating and just Halloween in general bring community together?
That's such a great question, and I love that you asked that. There are so many ways to celebrate. People are excited about the prospect of sharing treats. It really helps to bring people together, to your point. So whether that's making a decoration in front of your home that people can see, or having a costume parade that involves people and maybe even pets in the community, or just having treats out to share with trick-or-treaters as they come to your home, you're absolutely right that Halloween is an amazing time to bring a community together.
Now, how can parents feel secure and safe when their child goes trick-or-treating this year?
That's a great question. We have a ton of tricks for treating on alwaysatreat.com/Halloween, including tips for how to stay safe during trick-or-treating.
Now, where and how can people stock up on candy to make sure that they're prepared for Halloween? Because I know so many kids, that's their favorite thing to look forward to. So what can people do to make sure that they're prepared?
I think that just making sure that you are picking up the treats that you know that people will love, maybe treats that you will love as well. Highly recommend stocking up a little bit sooner and maybe getting a little bit more than you expected, because we do hear from some people that they run out of treats early because, again, of that really strong enthusiasm around the Halloween season.
Right. And not everyone only takes one. So we got to think about those people as well.
That is true. We actually found out from Americans that people on average are giving out somewhere between 2 and 3 pieces of candy, depending on the house. And that they're mostly giving out those mini treats, which are just the perfect size for trick-or-treaters.
Now, most people enjoy the chance to eat their favorite candy during the season. But what should people do to keep in mind just to make sure that they're having a healthy balance?
That's, again, such a great question. People really do understand that chocolate and candy are treats and something to enjoy as that little bit of sweetness. On average, people in the U.S. enjoy chocolate and candy about 2 to 3 times per week, which averages just 40 calories and 1 teaspoon of added sugar per day. And that includes these special moments like Halloween when chocolate and candy play a larger role. So people understand that they are exactly that, just a treat.
Now, so much candy and chocolate is shared during the month of October, because as we mentioned, like this season is like the entire month, not just the 31st. So how can people store their candy after the celebration is over without being too wasteful?
Again, that's a great question. We have a lot more resources at alwaysatreat.com/Halloween because every treat is a little bit different for how you're going to want to store it to keep it fresh.
Now, I also want to know, what is your favorite Halloween treat, or, what's a Halloween treat that you kind of share with your friends and family?
That's the question of the season. I have to say, I love candy corn. It is perfect for this time of year. I'd say all of those top three, I would enjoy any treats that are coming out of that top three, but I really love candy corn.
And then I know we talked about not having too much candy, but do you have any advice or any tips for parents who kind of have to break the news to their kids that, like, this was just, for today, or this was just for this week. This is not something that we should indulge in all the time?
Absolutely. Those conversations are so important to be having throughout the year. And we know from parents that they look to these candy moments, these moments when chocolate and candy are playing a little bit more of a large role, to facilitate those conversations, have those conversations and make sure that that their children understand the role of chocolate and candy as a treat. And I'll plug it again, alwaysatreat.com/Halloween has a ton of resources to help parents navigate those conversations at Halloween and throughout the year.
Well, Carly, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this really fun conversation about Halloween candy. I know it's, just, we're not near Halloween just yet, but this is like really exciting. And I'm having a lot of fun talking about candy. It's something that I kind of wish I could do all the time. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy Halloween season to you.
To learn more about the National Confectioners Association 2023's Halloween candy trend, please go to their website at www.candyusa.com. Don't go away. We'll be back right after this.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Port Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
I'm sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug. You know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for ya. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
Welcome back. The organization SuitUp aims to address the lack of diversity in corporate America and the difficulties schools face in sparking career curiosity. To overcome this challenge, SuitUp offers innovative competitions that prepare students between the ages of 10 to 18 for their future careers. In addition to character and career building opportunities, students can also win a cash prize. Kelsey English Smith, Managing Director of Partnerships for SuitUp, joins me to discuss. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you just explain, I said a little bit about it, but can you tell us more about SuitUp and its overall mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So SuitUp is a 501c3 education-based nonprofit. And what we do is we work to increase career awareness for all students through our innovative business plan competitions and events with corporate volunteers. So what that means is we bring students from local underserved communities into the office spaces of our corporate partner and task them with solving a business challenge that's unique to that company and to that industry. So in this way, we're really elevating student voices as the CEOs for the program. And then the corporate volunteers come in and serve as their business coaches. And they support the kids in thinking through things like strategy, marketing, finance, and design, all laid out in a custom framework that we provide the team. And then about 4 hours later, at the end of the experience, the students pitch their ideas to a panel of judges who are typically senior leaders from our corporate partner. And then the winning team of students walks away with that cash prize.
And we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that. This sounds so exciting. But I really want to know what inspired the creation of this organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were actually founded back in 2014 by both a Teach for America teacher and a Wall Street analyst. So the Teach for America teacher kind of came to the table and said, hey, my students don't have access to the college and career awareness preparedness resources that they need and deserve. And on the Wall Street side of things, he was sharing, hey, I really want to reinvent what it means to actually volunteer in corporate America. Rather than painting local schools or cleaning up local parks, why don't we actually use our skills as corporate volunteers and get our students involved in programs that show them, hey, this is what you can be when you grow up, right? Give them a chance to experience what it could be like in the corporate world, to start to open up some doors for them and show them, hey, this is what life could be like if you want to pursue one of these careers.
Now, why did you want to focus on students ages 10 to 18? That's a really large age bracket. So can you just talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at the landscape of education nonprofits, a lot of them are starting to focus on late high school, early collegiate years. And at SuitUp, we believe that sometimes that can be a little bit too late. So we want to start these conversations as early as age 10 to give the students the opportunity to learn about a whole host of job titles and industries that they may not have ever even heard of before. So they can start to think about, hey, how can I connect my personal interests with future career opportunities? And as a former second grade teacher, I can tell you, my kids were talking about what they want to be when they grow up as early as age 7. So we want to start these conversations as early as we can.
No, I think that's so interesting. What are the benefits of introducing students as young as 10 to career readiness programs? Because as you mentioned, people often think, okay, ages 16, 17 is when you start talking about it. But I thought it was really interesting to see that it was starting at 10. So can you just explain what are some of the benefits of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We really want to show kids how can they actually think through a career and bring in that passion. It no longer just has to be a job that they get that paycheck. Let's actually show them that, hey, I really like social media. Wait, social media means I can have a job in marketing, and marketing can actually be a really lucrative career. So starting to connect these lines as early as age 10 is going to give them this opportunity to start to follow their passions and start to build up what could my life be like once I graduate from high school.
And what you just did that I really loved is that you validated a young child's dream or experience, because I know that oftentimes when people hear, oh, I want a job in social media, they kind of look down upon it, especially for younger generations. Can you explain, the importance of saying is that something that you want to do? Here are some different avenues you can take for that.
Yeah, absolutely. You really want to nurture that excitement, that passion, right? So a lot of students, again, especially when I was teaching, I heard a lot of students say, hey, I want to be the next, Derek Jeter, right? I want to be the next Beyonce. Yet we all know that not every student is going to make it onto that field or make it onto that stage. So how can we show them that you can absolutely still follow your passion, but maybe you're working behind the scenes at the MLB, right? Maybe you're working for the Yankees and kind of on the corporate side of things, and showing students that they can still be very much involved in that career, in that industry, but maybe just in a different way. So oftentimes we might think about, okay, social media just as scrolling on your phone, but we don't think about all the business that goes into it. And the students are already, I'm sure a lot of us can attest to the fact that they are way far in advance of what we can even do on social media. So let's show them how they can use that for good, how they can use those skills to be successful.
And I think that's so great. I think it would help so many college students later down the line, because as we mentioned, we tend to start later. And if this is the first time you're thinking about a career, you feel overwhelmed, you pick something, and then when you're ready to graduate, you don't even like what you picked. So I think this is I actually think this is a really great, pathway to help these students later on down the line. Can you just talk about how your organization uses education as a tool to motivate students as well?
Absolutely. So we really want to promote that education is power, right? And showing our students that within these competitions and within the real business world, you're using things that you learn in school all the time, right? So you're using your critical thinking skills. You're using persuasive language. You're using math, X, Y, and Z. So putting these things into practice and showing students, hey, that student that raised their hand and said, when am I going to use this in everyday life? Here are the opportunities we're going to connect that, and showing them that the skills that they already have, plus the skills they're going to learn from their corporate volunteers, will realistically come together to really set them up for success.
Now, how do you team up with schools to help bring this vision to life?
So we partner with schools across the country, so anywhere from grades 5 through 12, to get the students involved in our programs. So we partner with principals, guidance counselors, school teachers to get the students involved. And all of our programs are 100% free for our students. So they kind of come in as an educational field trip fitting seamlessly into their school day, about 10 to 2. And the students get to, take off the hat of a student for the day and become the CEO.
Now, I think this sounds just like so much fun. I think I would love to do this as well. What is the realistic corporate challenge?
So this is the fun part. This is where we're actually going to customize it to the company or brand that we're working with. So we work with some of the top brands in the world. Snapchat, Salesforce, Chobani, the yogurt company. These are all different companies that when we partner with them, we're going to put their brand and their language at the forefront of the competition. So for instance, if we're working with Snapchat, the students might be creating a new feature for Snapchat that helps us solve a community problem. So they're peeling back the layers a little bit with their corporate volunteers who work for Snapchat day in and day out and learning, hey, what could it actually be like to put my skills to the test, be a part of the Snapchat family and create this new process for their team.
Now, how do these type of activities inspire students to achieve more?
So as I mentioned earlier, they are no longer students when they walk in that door. As soon as they walk in that door, they are dressed as CEOs. And let me tell you, they act accordingly. We always talk about that suiting up is not about the attire that you wear, but it's about that professional mindset that you put on. And you put students in a boardroom, you put them in these buildings, in these beautiful offices, and all of a sudden they become that persona, they become that professional. So it really is showing them that they deserve the seat at the table, they deserve to be there, and giving them the chance to really flex their skills.
Now, can you talk about the coaching opportunities and services in the program?
Yes. So there is a competition aspect to our program. So students in about teams of 5 to 8 are coached by corporate volunteers from the companies that we work with. So about 3 to 6 volunteers per team. So again, students are the bosses for the day, but they're coached by their business professionals. And they're talking through strategy, marketing, and design, all laid out in that participant handbook I mentioned earlier. So the coaches are really bringing in those guiding questions, pushing the students' thinking, that type of thing. But also one of my favorite parts too is when they're just kind of side by side eating pizza in the middle of the day and having those authentic conversations of, how did you get this job? Right? What did you study in school? How did you get here? So students can start to think about what track could they take if they wanted to pursue a career in that industry.
And I just love to hear that. It's so amazing because so many students don't get a chance to kind of like speak with these people, with these types of people. Because like we know, like sometimes, who you know is what helps you in life. And if your parents have never, even if they may be successful, may never been in those rooms, like this could be life-changing for so many of those kids. So I'm so glad to hear that. Now, what is the 2023 SuitUp for SuitUp Gala?
Yes, so we host a black tie gala every year in November. This year, it will be held at the Capitol in New York City. And this is really just an opportunity to celebrate the success of our students, the success of our year with our corporate volunteers, our donors, our teachers, our friends, and our family. So everyone gets together for a really fun night. It's not a traditional gala in a sense. So it's 9 p.m. to 1:30. It is dancing, food, drinks. And really, again, all of the proceeds are to go towards serving upwards of 11,000 plus students in 2024. So just a great opportunity for all of us to get together and celebrate. And tickets are still available on our website for anyone in the city who's interested in joining us.
Now, how can influential people and organizations get involved in this effort? As I mentioned, it sounds amazing and it sounds fun for both the students and, the mentors. So how can somebody watching, if they are a part of these like really large companies, get involved?
Absolutely. So we always say word of mouth is so powerful. We've really grown exponentially over the past 3+ years in that word of mouth, in companies sharing with, their families, their friends, people in their network. Hey, I just did SuitUp. Why don't you guys do it too? So look us up on our website, find us on LinkedIn, figure out what could this look like for your company, and just share our story a little bit. It only takes about $29 to get a SuitUp student involved in a program. So if you're able to donate, we'd love to have you donate or get involved as a corporate volunteer. And you can even join our board if it's something that you're interested in doing.
Now, as I mentioned, it's from 10 to 18, which it's just like an exciting, just time in their lives where they're learning so much. What is something that you've learned or that you've seen from maybe the younger students versus the older students?
I would say for our younger students, they don't have that ceiling yet. Their ideas are huge. They are big. We're talking if they're creating a new product for Nike, it's a roller coaster, right? They are thinking way outside of the box. And it's so invigorating to see what are they going to come up with next. For our high school students, especially juniors and seniors, you're seeing products that could actually be put into practice. You're seeing KPIs that make complete sense in how they're tracking success. So there's definitely some differences there, but I would definitely say do not count out those 5th and 6th graders because they have some amazing ideas.
Now, what are some other events your organization hosts? Because I understand you host quite a few.
Yes, so I would say our bread and butter program is our business competitions. From there, we now also have mock interview events where students are learning about what it could be like to interview for a job position and the skills that you need. We also have dynamic panel discussions and networking events. And now, as of 2020, we host everything both virtually and in person. So completely up to our companies and our schools what works best for them. So now zip code is no longer a barrier to be involved in our programs.
And what's something that you would say to somebody, I know like you work with different schools. What is something you would say to like maybe a school community that's, I don't know why you would be on the fence, but let's say they're not sure, this is like maybe something new for them. What would you say to get them involved?
I would say to give the students the opportunity to shine, right? Because there's so much creativity that's within them. And we know within traditional schools, sometimes that can be a little bit bogged down with testing and, all of the different formats that are currently in place. So giving the students just the opportunity 4 hours to ideate, to create, to become that boss that they know that they can be. It's just incredible to see how the students come out of their shell, and it really does boost their confidence. So I would say to any teacher or any school who's just thinking about it, contact us. Let us tell you a little bit about the success stories we've had and get your kids involved.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this fun conversation about this amazing program.
Thank you so much for having me.
To learn more about this amazing program, please go to the website at www.volunteersuitup.com. Stay tuned. We have more for you right after this.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
Analytics and empathy. That's how I get clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I am more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back. In an effort to support healthcare in the Bronx, St. Barnabas Hospital Health System announced a plan to expand their care units. Let's take a look back at this interview with Dr. Eric Appelbaum, the COO of SBH Health System. So can you just tell me about, the SBH's latest renovation project?
Sure. We are in the design phase of an emergency department expansion. Our emergency department last expansion was about 20 years ago when I was a junior attending there in the ER. I'm an ER attending by practice, and we've sort of outgrown our space. We probably outgrew our space a long time ago. And the needs for this community are just ever increasing, and we really need to modernize so we can give our staff and our patients a better experience.
No, I think it's just so interesting, especially for me, just as somebody like on the outside looking. I don't think that we often think about like the planning that goes into a hospital, and how we can make sure that patients and people visiting there can kind of like, nobody wants to go to the hospital, right? But you want to make sure that while you're there, that it's an experience that you don't think negatively about. So
absolutely. So, we're looking to address all those needs, right? A hospital, to me, it's like a little city, right? We have to feed people. We have to take care of them. We have to keep them safe. But, while you're there, as a parent, I've been in emergency departments in several places, and you want a really nice experience. You want to have a dignified experience. You want it to be private. Right now, the way our emergency department is set up, it looks more like an open, sort of like a MASH unit. And while the care is great, while my nurses are fantastic and the ancillary staff and the physicians are amazing, it's not a dignified experience at all times. And that's what we're looking to do. You bring your loved ones in, and there are private moments. We have behavioral health challenges, substance abuse challenges. You don't need that advertised to the public, and the public can be right there. So we're really looking to improve that experience so that people want to access healthcare, right? Especially for our young folks. We don't want them to be afraid of physicians. We don't want them to, the physician, from the beginning of time should be a long time sort of trusted, or the healthcare system should be a trusted area and something that you want to go to. So we got to do our part, especially for the emergency department.
So I kind of want to expand on that. So is the mission to kind of make sure that the emergency department is possibly more private? Is that what you're...
That's definitely one of the, a huge point. Absolute private rooms. Like I said, when I've gone to emergency departments, there are TVs in every room, and we're going to do our best to make it as fancy as possible. Why not? Why not make it fancy? And more private, so that when I'm having a behavioral health discussion with a 17-year-old, young child, about depression or anxiety or about bullying, it's not out in the open, or where someone's having one of the worst days of their life, and I have someone who's intoxicated, or someone who has a trauma and is grieving. It doesn't have to be, there's ways to make it better. There's ways for people to look back on that moment and say, hey, there was some dignity there. So that's a key, component of what we're trying to change.
And I could also imagine that it's really important because sometimes that experience makes people not want to go to the hospital because, like, maybe you don't want everybody to know what you're dealing with, or, possible judgment. So I'm really glad that, healthcare professionals are actually thinking about that experience. Now, I also want to talk about that experience and how it's specific to the Bronx, not as specific to the Bronx, but, how it affects people from the Bronx. Can you just talk about some of the disparities, Bronx residents face, when they encounter any emergency room or the hospital in general? Sure.
Well, a lot of our patients are under or non-insured. We have obviously a large migrant population with no insurance, and, the access that they have to primary care is just less. It's just not as good. The hours aren't the same. The ability to connect to physicians is not the same. So they end up choosing the ER as a last resort, right? There's urgent centers that have certainly helped a little bit in some cases, but our folks have to come here out of, almost for things that you and I may not have to go to an emergency department for. In the middle of the night, when I was a resident, I used to see young moms bringing 3 kids in the middle of the night. I said, this isn't fair. Why is she doing that? That might be her only choice because she's got to get up and go to work tomorrow, and her doctor's not available because there just aren't doctors available. So the disparities of just the access are huge. And then the experience is different. I'm sorry, but when you go into some of the, areas across the country where the resources are just much more intense, it's just nicer. It just feels better. Like I said, the care is fantastic. We're doing the right thing. Our doctors and nurses know what to do, but it's just that feeling that you get of, that there's someone there for you and can dedicate their time, and it's not chaotic. So. And I'm also glad that you're really here, because this is a question that I've asked myself multiple times as somebody who just is from the Bronx, and, maybe I'll go to a healthcare provider. Are the wait times also the same? Because I noticed, at least for in my community, sometimes if you go to the ER, you're waiting 8 hours, 9 hours. Yeah. Is that a thing for everybody, or is that specific to areas like the Bronx? It's going to be higher in low resource areas, right? I mean, we're also going to address things in our community that aren't addressed everywhere. We obviously have a high behavioral health population. Some of those patients may need more resources. We have a trauma center. We're a level 2 trauma center. We're very proud of that, and in some of the areas, and especially in different cities, it's not as high a need. And so when you're essentially in triage, with your cold or flu or whatever we're addressing, or a heart attack, obviously we take right in. But with some of the minor complaints, if a double shooting comes in, and I hate to say that, that does happen, it's going to slow things down. So the wait times, it's a direct result of resources often. And that's something that we're looking, by making the flow of the department and the physical structure enhanced, will improve that. There's no doubt about that. The way we triage people, the way people access the physical department is just going to make things go easier and will improve those times.
Now, how do these obstacles create challenges for healthcare professionals and how they connect with their patients?
That's a fantastic question. So, every year we get young residents and, new physicians into the system who are training, and nurses. And that's the first thing that they look around and said, how can I have this conversation? How can I connect to this patient if there's 4 patients right next to me? I'm whispering, and I used to do the chart whisper. Now it's all electronic, but I used to sort of cover the chart and hide and say, hey, tell me about this sort of your XYZ problem. And I'm embarrassed, you're embarrassed. And it's not that I'm embarrassed about the topic. I feel bad. I'm saying this right next to someone. So the connection just isn't there. We see the connection in primary care, right? I also did primary care for many, many years. And the connection I had with those patients, their family, after all these years, you're in the room, and you just get that one-on-one, the eye contact. One of the things that we always teach our physicians is, when you have the opportunity with a patient and you can sit down. You shouldn't be standing, leaning over the bed. Sit down. You're talking. It's person to person, right? They're not patients all the time, right? They're people all the time, actually. So that's something that the staff are really, really excited about, making it a much more, conducive environment for the connection.
And also, I guess, to expand on that, how could, a lot of these upgrades, we talked about a few of them, how can this strengthen that relationship, especially in a community where there's a lot of distrust already? Yeah,
so it just gives you more time. It gives you more privacy to get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th question, right? Remember, as an emergency department, as any healthcare professional in anywhere, it's not only your responsibility to just address what the emergency is, right? Especially if someone comes in with a sprained ankle and I notice your blood pressure is a little high. I'm going to tell you right now that me taking the extra 5 minutes in a nice quiet environment to talk to you about the dangers of high blood pressure and why you should take your medicine, probably more important than addressing that ankle. And that connection there will lead to better health for that patient and hopefully their family down the road. So yes, that definitely is important.
Now, according to an interview with SBH Physician Magazine, you've been with SBH for over 20 years, which I would say congratulations. That's like a really huge accomplishment. How have you seen the world of healthcare transform, especially in communities like the Bronx?
Well, this is my 26th year at SBH, so sort of born and raised there. I'm not born technically. I was born at Einstein in the Bronx. Spent some time here with my grandparents for many years. I think now we're really starting to address sort of vigorously the social determinants of health. And this is something that was not when I was, a resident and a young physician. We are talking about homelessness. We're talking about the poverty. We're talking about hunger. I mean, we supply food to our patients now. We run a food pantry. We have a teaching kitchen to teach people how to cook culturally appropriate and eat healthy food. We have a gym so people can work out. We have a farm where we're teaching people about how vegetables and healthy plant-based meals may improve their health, will improve their health. So I think that's the big key, is to really focus on the people, and the social determinants are everything now. It's tragic, but because I'm sorry if you live in New York City in certain zip codes and then you just take a train ride up, your life expectancy goes down just based on where you are. And that's something that in today's day and age just shouldn't exist. And it does, and we're doing our part to face it.
Now, I guess for the overview, can you just explain, what the expansion plan is? We talked a little bit about that, but can you just give us like an overview of like what the plan is?
Sure. So the plan is to completely modernize the ED. So we plan to add tons of private rooms, improve the access for the ambulances, a dedicated behavioral health unit that's, a dedicated pediatric unit, geriatric unit, upgrade a lot of the staff workstations. So there's a whole suite of options that we have there, but we're really looking to address what the Bronx needs, right? So I want to improve my trauma access. I want to improve behavioral health. I want to improve the experience for substance abuse patients, and then pediatrics. Definitely, when kids have to come to the ED, we need to have a dedicated space. And unfortunately, over the years, we've had time where we sort of had to just move people around. And that's just, it's not good for the staff. It's not good for the patients. So we're really looking to improve all that with this project, and it's very exciting.
And I'm excited just hearing about it because I think that it's important for people to understand that like these things are being looked at. Like I said, sometimes I'll go and I'll be like, this should really be fixed. Like this thing shouldn't be this way. So it's so glad to hear that, that your team is actually thinking about that and working on it. So I appreciate, you taking the time to talk to us about this.
Thank you so much. Well, we're looking for support, obviously from our community, our elected officials, and we hope we can get this done. And I appreciate the time to talk today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you want to stay up to date about SBH's plans to expand their space, please go to their website at www.sbhny.org or follow them on social media at SBH Bronx. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
Bro, you gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's a white people thing.
Escúchame, en esta casa los hombres no lloran.
You all right?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
Thanks for hearing me out, bro. Appreciate it.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Welcome back. Academy Award nominee David Petersen and world-renowned ballerina Misty Copeland joined forces to present a moving documentary that shines a spotlight on the transformative power of dance. Titled Lift, the film follows Stephen Melendez, principal artist and artistic director of New York Theater Ballet, as he guides underprivileged children into the world of dance. Let's take a look at the trailer.
My name is Steven. I came out of this shelter here because I joined ballet. I've come back to continue that program. It's 20 years later. I've traveled around the world performing and choreographing. I was the obvious choice to mentor these kids because I was someone who had gone through what they're going through.
I want to be a dancer in a ballet.
But going through that shelter, there's some trauma.
What happened?
Okay. Yeah, I don't feel so good. Okay, let's see.
Did you faint?
Do you have any movements that maybe make you think about moving between homes?
See. We're doing like this choreography about our backgrounds. We're like getting movements into the work.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think that means?
Strong, play. OMG. I want my family to get like up top of there. What is this?
It's not like for you. I have light skin.
I'm black, honey.
Director of the film, David Petersen, now joins me to discuss Lift. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kibin.
Now, I just loved the trailer. It was so amazing, and I just felt so much just watching it. Can you tell us a little bit more about Lift, the documentary?
Absolutely. It's an 11-year odyssey, really. I started tracking a little kid named Victor Abreu, who, I didn't know what would happen with his life. I met Stephen Melendez, who ended up being the mentor to these children. And it wasn't until Stephen had a faint, which you see in that little clip, where I realized, oh my God, this is the film. And then that's where we really Stephen rediscovered his childhood.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And I like that you said like you kind of went with like what was going on. Like this is where the film is taking us. Let's follow this. I think that's pretty amazing. What was the process of bringing these experiences to the screen? As we kind of see, like it's like some heavy topics almost. So what was the process of like bringing that to the screen?
Well, I worked with this wonderful producer named Mary Racine, and she and I were sort of creative collaborators in that we knew, and we worked with Stephen in many ways, to be very careful not to show that sort of stereotype of homelessness. My own dad came from a home insecure background in the Bronx, in fact. And so I knew that I didn't want to touch on the kinds of things that we all see, people under cardboard boxes and so on, and dealing with social services. That all exists to some extent, but they're families. There are people all like us, one step away from home insecurity. So we wanted to show the aspirations, the love of these families that's genuine. And that's been always our experience when we discovered these families, and they let us into their lives.
And I definitely feel that like that inspiration and that like the light that so many of those children had, like it just like shines through so much. So you definitely did a wonderful job on that. Can you talk about the Lift Community Service program and how much of the program inspired the making of the film?
Yes. So I was approached in a dog park where all great films begin by a guy named Richard Termini, who is a photographer for the New York Times. And he said, "Hey, Dave, I got a great idea for a film. I've been photographing this troupe of, this ballet company for years, and they take children who are homeless." This was pretty much only homeless kids, and they become dancers. And they said, there's this one kid who's danced all over the world. That turned out to be Stephen. And there's other kids that have show promise. That turned out to be Victor. Victor now, by the way, is a dancer with New York City Ballet, one of the greatest ballet companies in the world. So I said, okay, where's the money? Of course, there was no money, but I did have a camera. I did have a student and they held the microphone, and boom, we were off and running to an 11-year journey to figure out what the story was.
Now, on this journey, you worked with, as you mentioned, Stephen Melendez. What was that experience like? And we saw in the trailer, that it was very moving for him. And I could imagine like to go back to that place and kind of even under the same circumstances. So what was it like working with him?
I think justifiably, he didn't want to go back to a childhood that he avoided. He danced all over the world: Estonia, Argentina, Japan. He had more, stamps in his passport than I have stamps at home, and my letters. I mean, he really constantly was traveling. He avoided that life, and coming back into the shelter was a traumatic experience for him. So that was the only sequence where I didn't shoot, because I knew that it would be a very difficult moment for him. And of course, we see what happens in the film. Without spoilers, it really affected him. But also I knew suddenly, and Mary knew, that, oh my God, this is the film. This is the Odyssey. This is where it really begins.
And how did it feel for you to capture that? I feel, and I'm not a director, so I don't know, but like sometimes you're on the sidelines capturing life, as it happens. Like, how does it feel to be almost a part of that, but also on the outside kind of looking at that?
Yes, I think there's always a covenant, a kind of gift exchange, because I essentially am taking someone's life and I'm making it into a story and I'm making it into a film. And there always has to be some giving back. And so in a way, I didn't know how we would give back, but the exchange has been so beautiful. The way, the pride, the empowerment, the strength from all of these families. You know, we had a Paramount Pictures premiere downtown. There's been a real sense of accomplishment at all levels. For the Lift ballet program, they feel that there's vindication. You know, what Diana Beyer built 44 years ago is now being vindicated across the world because you know, we highlighted it. So there is an exchange. There's a kind of circularity.
Now, another notable person who worked on this project is world-renowned ballerina Misty Copeland, who served as executive producer. What was it like to have her support in this film? I am not like a huge, I'm not like huge in the ballet world, but I know who she is. Yeah. And so like when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. So what was it like to have her support?
So Misty came on board in 2017 when we were kind of struggling to figure out what the film was going to be, how we could raise some money, you know, could we get PBS on board? That was sort of where we started. And she very generously said, okay, I will be an advisor. Maybe I'll be more involved later. And she has been sort of, again, sort of a guiding light in terms of her support. She's very busy. She has books. She has her own film called Flower out, but she has always been present, social media, all of those things. And she, you know, she says, you know, this is what I really believe in, because she herself came from a very similar background, home insecurity, in California. So she really feels a connection to these children.
Now, as I mentioned, like it spanned over 10 years, nearly 11. You know, can you just talk about the relationship you built with, you know, the people that you worked on this film with, especially the children? I got to hear a little bit about them. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
My God, these people are my family. Okay, so you know, I'm a long hauler on the old documentary front. You know, in that I didn't think I was going to spend 11 years on this. But by doing so, you get very, very close to the families. People like Shariah's father, who says, I know this means a lot to you, but it means a lot to me. And he puts his hand over his heart just before her performance. And he has come to every single public screening, you know, with Shariah. And Shariah's, you know, she's the one who says, encouragement is my favorite word. Same with Yolansi. You know, Yolansi also, she had a lot of struggles in the film. As you can see, there's a big scene in which Stephen sort of talks her down from, you know, violence and getting suspended. Again, she has come through in a very interesting, beautiful way. Also, Victor, of course, he has a success story too. But this film isn't about the big hurrahs, the home runs. It's actually about all the children like Shariah, Yolansi, some of the kids that I filmed that didn't ever get in the film. They are holding up people like Victor, and they're pushing them forward. That's why at the end of the film, there's this very slow movement. It's this sort of beautiful final dance that every single gesture is earned because those children came up with those gestures in concert with Stephen's choreography. And that is so moving to me, to see those children walk across the stage very slowly.
Now, I also want to mention, when we think ballet, it's like one of the most prestigious art forms, you know, and it's associated with specific backgrounds, and just the art itself is so soft and delicate. You know, can you just talk about the importance of kind of like showing that in comparison to the very raw, real, harsh realities of, you know, just like dealing with homelessness? And I also loved the scene where the children are like in the park. Like if you're from New York City, like, you know, those like parks, and like, although they're like fun places, they still have that like concrete jungle feeling, and they're doing ballet there. And it's just like, I just like to see that like contrast. So what was the importance of like kind of showing that and highlighting that?
I think it's a very good point, because it's an aristocratic art form. It was created for royalty in France, you know. So here are children from the Bronx, from the streets, who take that form and make it their own language. They say, you know what? This is strong. They hold, you know, Shariah holds up her arms, which really ends the film in a lot of ways. That they take this aristocratic art form and they tell their own story, a story of homelessness that I've never seen on the stage. And the great thing about that performance is we saw people in the audience, people from the shelter community, people from the dance community, all walks of life come to that live performance and all loving the dance form, you know, because they saw their own story in it. And going back to Misty Copeland, she says, you know, when I was a dancer, I didn't see, you know, stories about people like me. Same with Steven. Said in the film, he even says it. Said, I didn't see stories about people like me, but they are the voices that are changing this art form. And Shariah and Yolansi and Victor are all doing that.
Now, what was the response like from audiences? You know, the film was released. So, you know, what was it like to see people react to the film?
Well, we've shown it all over the world. We showed it in Cartagena, in Colombia. We've shown it, you know, across the country. And there's a universal connection between this idea of people who have largely been marginalized or not recognized, have become empowered. And for these kids to become empowered in that last dance of the film is so moving. You know, I kept contemplating about the title. You know, Mary and I kept thinking, well, should we use this title Lift? There's about 100 films called Lift, right? But it was exactly the right word for what is happening to these children. These children are lifting themselves up. It's not someone else lifting them. They see a path to empowerment and they find their own voice. And that's what's beautiful.
Now, this movie has been just like a huge part of your life. 11 years, that's like almost like another, like raising a child almost.
Are we done?
So, you know, what was something that you learned from this experience?
To be patient. I learned to be patient. I learned to not go for the stereotype. Always listen to the people who are speaking to you. They are speaking. Stephen was speaking to me. Shariah was speaking to me. Yolansi was speaking to me. Victor was speaking to me. They were saying, don't go there. Don't go in that stereotyped direction. Just pay attention. And I had to think about that. Mary and I had to think about that in the editing. We had to think about it in, you know, the shooting. We had to think about it in the final point at which we were saying, do we submit this? No, we're not ready because we need another 6 months to really scrutinize it and pay close attention to the voices that are coming from the community. And we did. And I think that is why it's gotten this incredible opportunity, this flowering to go through Paramount out to the world.
Now, how can people further support the film?
You can go and spread the word because this is still a film that is done. It started from the streets. It started grassroots and it continues that way. So social media, go to our website, www.liftdocumentary.com. Even if you just type in on Google, Lift Documentary, one word, you'll get it. And so there, and then everything with social media, Lift Documentary, that all helps get the word out about why the voices of these children need to be heard.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing this story with us.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thanks.
If you would like to see this documentary, please go to our website at www.liftdocumentary.com. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recap cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.